Eliza Monroe comes to mind. She was President Monroe's daughter, and he had another daughter who was getting married, the younger daughter, Maria, and Eliza was running the White House. The mother was ill. By the way, that's a common theme. There are all these books. You'll find a lot of books in this bookstore about first ladies, and many of those first ladies, especially in early American history, gave birth to so many children that by the time their husband was elected president, their bodies were worn out, and it was a daughter that ran the White House. The histories of the First Lady, but there's a couple First Ladies who never entered Washington. I guess you know about some of those. If not, I'll tell you. But anyway, some very insightful stories, and the one of the Monroe daughter is that Eliza had gone to a school in France, graduated from that school, came to the United States, and really felt more continental than she did American, and was a bit offended by the frontier culture of America. And so she tried to impose on the White House the refinement that she'd picked up in France, and in the process, I guess this happens and shouldn't be surprised, in the process offended, of all people, the French and Spanish and English diplomats. It was the Europeans who didn't like her version of what European society should be like. And so this feud developed between the Monroe daughter and the diplomatic corps in Washington, D.C. And so when Maria had a wedding, Eliza, her older sister, stepped in, took it over, and refused to let any of the diplomats come to the wedding. Well, this was the first big wedding in American history. This was the first time a presidential daughter was going to get married, and of course the tradition in Europe, marriages were state events. They were the mergers of kingdoms. They were hotly debated before they took place and after they took place, and so the Europeans were used to having big weddings, but they were not used to being shut out, and so there was a big argument about it. It poisoned cabinet meetings. And I tell you that whole story to say that when James Monroe and John Quincy Adams, his Secretary of State, sat down to forge the Monroe Doctrine, the Monroe family was pretty bitter towards many of those European kingdoms anyway. And Eliza had her little role to play in the Monroe Doctrine and to strengthen the spine of her father, who made it his policy that no one should interfere from in the Western Hemisphere, or that was a threat to the United States. But